And often in society, it's evolved around money. Yeah. Poverty being a lack of money, and wealthy being an abundance of. And often what you find with people who are living a poverty life in this society is they're not just living in poverty with one thing. They're not just living in a lack of one thing. Usually they're living in a lack of multiple things. Going to an overall thing of how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you are always struggling in a way about a healthy thinking towards money, then you'll be struggling in a way towards healthy thinking around other things. Being in how you relate to people, how you think about people's situations, environments, and what you find, what the main thing that you find in those areas is. So wording such as like, I haven't got enough, or I can't do this, or I'm poor, or poor you, or I can't do this because of a lack of, and not being able to pull from your resources and only looking through eyes of, oh man, I wish I had this, and I wish I had that, and I wish my TV was bigger, and I wish my internet was faster, and everything looking for that, looking for more and only seeing less. What do you guys reckon? In a poverty mindset.
Yeah, I just believe that mindsets some mindsets are fixed, some mindsets are open. I believe that it's based around our condition, our environments, our upbringings. I believe that's what creates our mindsets. And so at different levels, and as a result of people's upbringings, that's sort of the basis of one's mindset. And that's just what I believe, that some people have really fixed mindsets, whether they're in a lack of or in an abundance of. The mindsets are conditioned based on our upbringing, our conditions. And I think it's just really good to have fresh thinking and to have an open mind. And that's just, in a nutshell, or at a glance, is what I first thoughts that come to mind when you ask that question. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, so we're agreeing so far on the. Have you got anything different than that, or the same?
Different, the same. I think I was remembering back to when I was younger, and I don't know when the first time I ever heard the word poverty mindset or anything like that, because everything forms in a language and someone has an opinion, and you know, the ability to be different. I guess we grew up just the way we grew up without thinking about that. And the opposite of poverty mindset is obviously the ability to be different than what you've been. If you recognise a set of what someone is trying to describe, if you can recognise it in your life, then you maybe have a new target you can set to. Some would say, you know, I personally recognised growing up that way a little bit, but only because it had a label, and then I had something to associate it to. And then the choice to make the best or strive to be different, and because I don't quite, you know, it's like I was thinking about the first time I ever heard the concept of what we're talking about.
So we are kind of looking through windows, right? We're looking through, or if I can sort of put it in a space or place, we're looking at the opposites of a continuum, almost like a polarized state. There's one end and then there's the other end, and then there's everything in between. And only if we're comparing and contrasting ourselves will we even be able to acknowledge where we might be on that continuum or not. Because sometimes, certainly as a child, there's not that way of thinking at all. It just is what it is. And only
Okay.
we can compare and contrast ourselves to someone else. Let's say at Christmas time, if you're with the cousins and your family's the one that doesn't have all the new equipment and the other family seems to have an abundance of new equipment and the latest of this, that and the other, that's when the compare and contrast starts to happen. And it will be totally, even as a child, what we're making meaning of, because I've seen children being completely just blown away by simple. And I know myself, sometimes it's as simple that has really made it different. So when we're doing this conversation, we're effectively looking and purposely pulling out the polarization, because of course both exist in the same space too, because someone can be wealthy in health and have a let's say a poverty in relationships. So it is possible to have it in the same space. Someone can be incredibly ill health, so we could look at that from a poverty perspective, as their body's not functioning very well,
Yeah.
but their previous career had set them up. So it can still happen in the same space, and we are doing this idea of having a look at the two different ones. And of course it does come through that compare and contrast, which we might call a judgment, in order to find out how far we've come in this time-space reality.
And with that, like, definitely a compare and contrast. But for anyone that's listening as well, watching and listening, that conditional thinking can be so unconscious, in a way of being told that a constant no, or a constant you're not good enough, or a constant you can't do that, and always just slammed. No, you can't, like, you'd never be able to do that, you'd never be good enough to do that, with child's dreams, you know, and then constantly smashing that. And now they are not, it's because it's conditional, for anyone that's listening, is because it's conditional and not knowing, like, you only know what you know. So if you don't know, to sometimes take that screenshot of yourself, of your life right now, to step back and go, well, actually, how am I doing me? You know, how am I doing me on a consistency? And then taking not a judgment of yourself, but a measurement of where you are, and sometimes where you want to be, or whatever that looks like to you. And being like, well, actually, what do I want? And what is the best way to do that? Because if I've been living in this lack and loss mindset, and I'll never be doing anything, I can't go for a run, I can't start the business, I can't get a pay rise, I can't be the captain of my sports team, and never wanting, inside somewhere wanting to do that better, but never actually pushing forward, because previously how you've been conditioned never empowered that.
Using that word conditioned, I mean, I love that you brought it up, Alex, and Shanen, I know you've mentioned it too. I mean, what is conditioning? You know, what is conditioning? It's something that's been normalized, and even if slightly questioned, the rules or the structure and a set of beliefs has been set so much that it's now just the way we're navigating our life. Yeah. You come across a different group of friends, and many of old conditionings start to be questioned so that you can fit in with a group of friends, let's say. And so then there'll be a new conditioning set just through a different friend group. And that friend group influences our thinking and what we're comparing against and what our conversations become and how we begin to value life. As you mentioned this early on, Shanen, it's about the environment as well, and pretty much our friend group, or what we're reading or what we're looking at or what we're paying attention to, is the influence of the environment, and then we're filtering it through our own set of conditions as to whether we'll accept it or not. And Alex brought it up yesterday, the nod. Yep, the nod is, I've got that. That's totally congruent with how my life is. That would be the nod that we give ourselves. And if something is different than we know, we might go, oh my God, I'd like to do that. But if the body, mind, being doesn't give you the nod, there's the limitation right there, and there's the conditioning right there.
I think something that you just brought out really well, and that was you mentioned about something that we no longer question. We talked about this the other day, Karyn. What was that? Was it our values?
So
Or was it our beliefs? Thank you.
I believe that beliefs are a set of rules that were put in place, and at some time through an experience, through something we made meaning of, and then a belief pretty much is something we no longer question.
And until you're forced, or until willing to grow possibly a mindset to now question it, and to actually say, hey, is that actually still handy for me? Or can I upgrade that and move that further, bigger, deeper, narrower, more defined? Or can I broaden it out? And starting to question more than, because with a poverty versus wealthy mindset, I think it was really nice how Shanen said about it being fixed. You know, a poverty mindset can be a lot more fixed than a wealthy mindset, not being so flexible within that.
Oh, I'm just going to jump from this conversation to something completely different, just to bring it back in. I just looked at it slightly differently. It's like, we are born wealthy in every single purposeful way. We've got this massive potential where we come in with pre-knowledge somehow of how to even create a human body that will eventually be a growing body that can reproduce in the simple form. And every time a baby is learning to do something, it's just trying things out, and it never fails. It just keeps going. Because if a baby truly failed, we'd have most adults walking around, crawling around. It wouldn't even be walking. Like, a baby just doesn't stop. It just keeps going, because it's not judging its behaviors against anyone else. It's just giving things a go, and it's learning, and it's soaking, and it's this beginner's mind, this freshness, this exploration, this fun, this joy, and it's purposefully, it's wealthy. Even if let's say it gets a little cold, or it's growing teeth and it gets a snotty nose or a runny bum, and all that sort of thing happens because it's interfering with it's developing within the body. The body knows how to heal all of that. It's only mama and dada that get upset about the baby's got a temperature, because the temperature's there to help the baby, if that makes sense. So our bodies and our capacity is so wealthy. It's just exquisite. And the conditioning comes through the limitations of placed upon through previous experiences of someone else. If those limitations weren't there, if we just removed all limitations for a moment, what's possible? Just move conditioning, all my experiences. This is what happened to me when I was da-da-da. This is so da-da-da. If we just drop all that, fresh thinking is immediate. I think the most biggest problem is then we don't know what to do with ourselves.
Definitely. We're learning beings.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Those that statement, Karyn, that anyone has the potential to be anything or anyone, but it is our beliefs or our experiences that create these boundaries that prevent us from moving forward. And I guess being able to acknowledge that and be able to have that ability to have that fresh thinking. I like what you said with the fresh thinking. When you have the ability to think a new thought, it just creates boom, sort of a mind explosion. It also reminds me of the saying, what would we do if we knew we wouldn't or couldn't fail?
Yeah.
If you're able to understand that concept, man, that's limitless. And the ability to have that fresh thinking, it can start now if we choose to create and generate new fresh thinking. Yeah, like what you said.
It feels real different. Just in the moment, all of us now just go to, oh, what's possible now? Oh my God, what's actually possible now? And in some senses, in some ways, the sense is overwhelmed because it's like, whoa, it's so vast. It's like this big space. It's bright. It's harmonious, and it's like, whoa, because we're conditioned to hallways and doorways and little locks and little memory tags and little post-it notes. This is, metaphor to how our inner being works. Pre-designed health and safety rules that we run around in ourselves.
Yeah.
Oh, I do not say that. What would other people think about me? Yeah. Your thoughts?
But I like what you're saying there, and just these metaphors that you're speaking of, and most times those that bring us up, the intention is for our safety or for our well-being, and why they put these maybe doors or barriers or things in place. From their view of the world or what they believe, it's for our best interest.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm noticing in my life with me raising my own children, and obviously believing how I'm raising them is for the best interest of them, although they may not agree right at this moment and at this point. And it just got me thinking that, hey, no, maybe those that were, bringing us up or raising us, I believe their intention was for our best interest. And then, this new fresh thinking, what I believe is good for my children. Do my children actually believe that's good for them?
I've got a question in this. I've got a question. So from coming where I stand, what if you continued to better yourself and not so much focus on your children, but then they could learn from that? Like if you continued on your own personal development path, then as long as everyone stays safe and healthy and it doesn't affect them negatively, but then they can learn off what you do and what doesn't work. What if you were, in a way, I'm just talking theoretically, not so focused on them, but focused on more so your own development, and then they learn from that, trying to always better yourself, gives them the opportunity to better themselves?
Yeah, great question, and this is what I'm talking about is our beliefs are made up by our environments, and growing up in our lives, being able to see the fathers out working, the fathers out going, doing things, the father, creating a lifestyle for the family, and at times when, and this is just through observation and just looking through my view of the world, they didn't really have good relationships with their children because they were focused solely around the drive for careers or for wealth or for success. That when the children grew up, they just, according to their beliefs, career drive was more important than time. And this is just through observation, but it may not mean that. And as fathers and the main providers of the home, they're saying, "Oh, what I'm doing is for you. Me going to work, working long hours, so you can go." Trips overseas, you can go on holidays, you can spend times with your mates and your friends. But then speaking to the individual or to the children, and what is it that they want, is just wanted my dad to take me to the park, just wanted my dad to take me to my sports game, just wanted my dad to come and watch me play sports. And that's a contrast in life, and I don't believe one way is the better way. I think a balance for me, having a balance to be the provider, but also playing the supportive father role. I think that environment can coexist. But I'm not sure which is the better one, going to work or staying home with the family, and I guess it's a, guess fruit is in the proof is in
also
the pudding.
It's levels of, like, often from what I've found is that male figures that I've looked up to in my life growing up have all said, "Don't do what I do. Do what I say, not as I do." And actually talking about their professions, talking about what they do day by day. Don't be a mechanic, don't be a builder, don't be an electrician, don't do this, don't do that. And I really relate with what you said about I just wanted my dad to come and watch my rugby. That was one of my biggest things. That was really cool. So I just want my dad to come and watch my dancing. And he hates it. Like, he doesn't enjoy it. He watches some waltz, and, like, I love doing some waltz, and he's like, "That's too bloody slow. That's boring to watch." And it's like, oh well, I just won't invite you then. That's okay, because I'm loving what I do. So this is like me now, 25, not looking for the okay from him anymore, but looking for the okay in me that I love what I like. So I just really respect. And
I like what you're saying, and this is what I'm talking about, a fixed mindset, where one, you love it, but it's too boring or too slow to watch it, is what I'm calling a fixed mindset. And just I don't want to change the way I think. I just want to no, this is just what I want to think, and this is what I believe, and that's just it. The question is that wrong?
Wow. It's a human.
Or is that right?
Right?
Yeah, it's just
that's the conditioning level to what you've developed in your own beliefs, your own experiences that model that go off how you model the world, and then you've only got an opinion within that to say, well, I think I'm right. There's the, okay, well, I'm actually going to look at myself and go, no, I believe I'm right. And then you can look at someone and say, I believe they're wrong, have an opinion or not about that. Ultimately, we don't really know, do we?
No.
We've just got our way and our trying, like you.
Yeah. What we now jump to is perspective. Does that make sense? We're now looking at different perspectives. So because I haven't got me a flip chart or a whiteboard, and you know, I'll always run towards the whiteboard. If that was an eye, that's pretty much what you can't see it, eh?
No, you can see that. Yeah, no, you can see that.
If it was an eye, that's a perspective. And so this is what we're calling conditioning is it's a way of viewing the world. What's really beautiful is, or if you think of everybody who is around you, who's influenced you in some way, whether they've agreed with you or disagree with you, whether you agree with them or whether you disagree with them, or whether you got that and you have included their view and you've added some more, they're all like eyes looking into us, and we look back at them. And sometimes I feel like, if I just put it to myself, sometimes I feel like some of my looking back to them is as unhelpful as the way I perceive them to be looking at me. Yeah. So if I go, oh, okay, well, that's how they were back then, and if I allow them to look at me different now, I hope everyone's following this, then I can change. Because sometimes it's just about what you're calling a fixed view, is we perceive someone to be one way, but actually in a different environment, they're just not like that. With other people, they're just not like that. They're actually really open. I know I've had experiences in life where I've experienced someone to be a certain way, and then I hear about them, or I witness them with someone else, and I'm like, oh my God, you're just so different with that person. So, you know, if we're really responsible in our fresh thinking, according to Karyn, I don't really know. I only have what I have in that moment of perception. And if I'm willing to let go of that and then move into a new moment of perception, then I get this variety. Now we're shifting to like what they call meta perspective. So here I am, Karyn, wandering around in my world. And if I watch Karyn wandering around in her world, I get a bigger view. If I watching myself wandering around, now I can see far more. It is a visual representation I'm offering. The fixed view thinking is when I'm only seeing through my own eyes. A little bit more inclusion of another person is when I'm watching myself behave, interact with other people. When I can come back from there and I see myself, and I can also see other things in play, and I find it myself now, I couldn't before, that I can allow some behaviors a lot more from those perspectives. And it's just a quick jump out to jump back in. Now, knowing that, what can I do? Or knowing that, how can I change myself?
I like this because watching Boxer while we've been building the shed is what I just heard from you is you make the best decision for your skill or your use or your interaction as best fit at the time. And what we've been doing is using resources that we have on the property and making the best decision for the best fit at the time to utilize the resource. Now, so what you're talking about is just making decisions for future you and current, but more for current you. And when you utilize a resource, it's actually a physical resource, and you've put it into something. Like, for example, we put some 8x2s on the truck, used them as hungry boards, and they were supposed to go into the shed. Now that resource is being utilized somewhere else, but it was the best use at the time for that resource, for the skill that it has.
And then I broke them.
And then they got destroyed.
Well, if I understand, a hungry board is something that if the digger grabs it,
yeah, it's a
the
sacrifice.
digger eats.
The
Yeah.
sacrifice
It's a
board.
sacrifice.
Oh, may I never be a sacrifice board. A hungry board.
but then now we've been building the shed and actually looked back and can't go get any more 8x2, and actually looking and going, well, okay, well, what are we going to utilize? What resource can we use now best fit for? Because we've already used the best fit for as that resource previously. So now how can we adapt and create that fresh thinking from our perspective of how we're going to use our resources that are sitting around? Because in this time, actually not being able to, in a way, with your mind and skills and with knowledge and information knowledge, not being able to just Google it anymore, only being able to use what's in your computer or in your phone because you're not connected to Wi-Fi in a way.
Oh, that's a great metaphor. That's a great metaphor.
So in a way, currently with what we're doing individually, we're a little bit unconnected to Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally, we are more connected than ever if we choose to. If when we decide and how we create, with a fresh thinking, with a wealthy mindset. I have currently, just as you came out kicking and screaming on the day that you were born, you have every resource you've ever needed within you. Knowing that and trusting that you can find that within you, and then to adapt that through experiences, perspectives, and altering your mindset of how you deal with people, how you deal with situations, how you utilize your environment, whether you are deciding from how you're deciding if you're deciding from a fear perspective, or if you're deciding from a driven perspective. You've all got choice. We've all got choice. Yeah, being able to reconnect into your own Wi-Fi and trust that you can find your own Google within for the situations and actually the physical that you have, and for it to be enough around you, but to also trust when you want something different, to trust that you can have that, to believe that you can have that, and to utilize your resources around you to create that for you. No matter how you've done life previously, up until now, it can all change when you choose it to.
Yeah.
I think sometimes what you're saying is exactly correct. And as we walk around the backyard and there's a whole lot of piles of stuff, and Charm puts it quite, even, I don't know, anyone who looks there would not believe that we could create what we created. So I imagine that most people don't know what their resources are. I've got quite a little busy brain and I'll stash stuff. And so I know I've got resources, but don't know how to put them together on the day. Sometimes, and then once you get can follow a gold thread, and that thread goes through and everything becomes clear, you get a good direction and a good perspective.
Is that because you've got your image in your head of what you're actually trying to create? You know what you want.
I have some levels of imagery, or also stemming from a basic need, like to be dry. Yeah. In this particular case for the shed, a basic need. So I guess it's no different than someone who has a basic need. They don't know where they're going, but they might go to an acorn tree. They might go to a sheep. They might go, barring in mind there's no shops.
Barring in mind.
That was unintended, but I'll take it.
But with that, like what you're creating with this, like you've got all your resources on your property that you're utilizing now, and it does come from experience that you've got to know how to create it safely.
Time on the planet is very helpful.
Yeah,
So, you know.
But also, I believe that in your time of on the planet, you would have made a lot of wrong decisions for what we've done or not.
Yeah, well, learnings, man. You know, to reflect,
well,
be kind to myself, I would call them learnings.
Hey, and that's two aspects again. That's two aspects of languaging, which one's useful and one's not. Yeah, you've had a lot of learnings. You either win or you learn, but always learn.
You know, because if I've learned something, I'm less likely to rake myself over the coals for it. If I've, you know.
Yeah.
And how we're kind to ourselves, and you know, it's amazing how a poverty mindset in this case is. I just sit here reflecting on the fact that actually money is one of the last things that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's interesting, eh? It's fascinating, and the conversation between the physical that you're talking about, building a shed, with two points of views as you discuss it through, is not dissimilar, Shan, to raising a family. Yeah, there's two different, if mama and dad are in the same house, there's two different perspectives that are running. There's two different, this comes to mind. So if you just cover one eye and you just look through the other eye and just look around, I'm just inviting you to do it. Guys, come on.
Oh.
Yeah, and just look through the one
Alex
eye.
is frozen.
Oh, Alex has frozen. And you look through that, and then you look through the two. You've got a different set of information. If you close off the other eye, and then open it up. So where that one perspective is the one eye, what the brain does with the two perspectives is to bring it in and mesh the information in. This is what I believe we're doing with conversation. Got two different perspectives, and then together we mesh it in. So with a family environment, Shan, within a family environment, there's so many perspectives that are interwoven, and we're doing the best we can in any one moment. With, of course, parents, we've had our experiences, we bring so much, there are so many things we'd love our children not to experience. So we kind of offer for them not to experience it. But they still have their own wants, their own desires, their own have to learn themselves. I don't know if anyone else other than me has that capacity of being told something, but until I see it for myself, that's a whole nother level of believing. Yeah. And it's a real balancing act with children. And we, all of us, no matter whether our parents together or whether they're separate, whether it was a loving household, whether it was a struggle, whether it was joy, whether it was whatever, we are the sum total of our parents, first of all, bringing us up, and then how we've made meaning of it. And our trust in the fact that you have the resources, we have the resources, is so powerful. Just noticing, Shan, that Alex has just dropped off. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get back on. He might have had a flat battery.
I'm now here.
Oh, here he is.
Ta-da!
So I wonder what's happened. So you're all there, we just can't see you?
I've got my invisibility cloak on.
So Shan now. Oh, good.
Go back to your maybe gallery view.
I think something that I've found is really important, no matter how and what level you're at, is like, how do you become successful? Whatever you deem successful to you. Yeah. I think this is really important, because success is your own measurement, and to gain success or to be successful, whatever that is, but how do you get successful or be successful is by the right decisions at whatever level. Now, how do you make the right decision? And that's through experience. But how do you gain experience? And that's through the wrong decision. And at the end of the day, trusting within you, utilizing your resources, and building that stepping stone of your knowledge, gaining, building, and growing from it, and learning from them all. Because at the end of the day, by the time, Shanen, you've brought your kids up and Boxer, we've built the shed, you're going to be able to look back in hindsight and go, well, I really like that. I would have done that differently. And effectively, you've grown from that, being able to assess of how you thought you did or not. And then at levels of, have to really be okay with what you utilized for the best of your resources at the time to make those decisions.
There's a really cool timeline, and there's a really cool timeline intervention in NLP. And what's cool about it is in a concept, you go back in time to a sticky moment, right? So you just go back within your thinking to a sticky moment. And it's normally one where you felt really unempowered, something that's got you stuck, something that's preventing you from moving ahead, that kind of thing. And when you go back in time, we can play in the field of possibility. All right, so step outside of there and watch around the people who are around you, what's going on. And almost every time I have noticed, when I've either had done this myself for myself, or whether I've taken people through the intervention, what they notice is that the people around them and themselves didn't have a resource. They didn't have access to their Google, if you like, Alex. They had a closed corridor of information. And so they were just simply needing something else. And using this fantastical mind, what we discover is that there's either an understanding that occurs, especially if it's from a child's perspective to an adult. Oh, that mum bear or that auntie or uncle or something didn't have the resources or the ability to see what I needed at the time. That understanding alone does so much healing. Another part of it is the capacity to go, well, if you did have the resources, if you had access to that concept that Alex brought in, the Google thing, if you had what you needed, what would you need? And often people say, I just need to feel like everything's going to be okay. Okay. So if you could imagine that was the case, that everything's actually going to be okay, that you're okay right now. You can ask the older part of self to go all the way back there to support. And this is always a loving thought too, because if the you that is now could go back to help yourself as a younger being, you'd know exactly what that young being needed, that younger self of you, and you'd be able to give it like a gift, like a reach through, even though they might have had a closed door environment, a hand through with an offering. And this is how the changes of meaning can be made from what used to be a past conditioning or a past stickiness. And it allows that not only them, but now there's more of an awareness of possibility and a real opening up to now talk about that experience quite differently. Yes, so even the shift in perspective, because it's all about perspective, that one. When we're talking about fresh thought, it's about looking at the way we've been meaning making about our past stuff, or even our now stuff, whether it's the shed making or the or raising a child or our money. It's like we've probably exhausted this little mind thinking of what we think we know. It's going past that and going, okay, so what haven't I been noticing? What else is possible? So that our perspective begins to look in a fresh way. Yeah.
It's a lot to float through. I think maybe in a way it will work out for the best of how it's worked out. at whatever level that is. And so swinging this back to actual financial and finances, the mindset around money is what you're chasing and how you're chasing it. If you're chasing money, you can get it, and then sometimes once you've got it, you've got to let it go for that item that you wanted, say the money for. Or, you know, if you want to be a millionaire, once you get that, then what? Some people continue on, want to be a millionaire, want to be a billionaire. And actually just what jumped into my head now is the people that want to retire. I just want to hurry up and I want to retire. I want to be retired by 50. I heard the other day I want to be retired by 30. And choosing what that means to you. So what does retirement mean? Does it mean sitting on a beach all day, or sitting in your nice house that looks over a nice view? I've only known a few people that can only sit there for so long and then they go, "Oh fuck, this is boring." But so in that mindset of choosing to have enough to retire and what that number is for you, but also choosing in some ways of the what's next. If there is a what's next, as a growth mindset. Okay, well, I've achieved my retirement. What can I achieve out of my retirement, if anything? Being, can I start my own business? Can I start another business? Can I own another house? Can I own another team? And what that growth thinking may or may not be. And at the poverty mindset, going back to an excuse making. I really believe that, making excuses, I can't do this because, hey, look, people can have some really justified excuses of why and why not. But something that sings to me of just a raw excuse of why, when we were doing martial arts, of why a certain woman couldn't become more flexible and stretch more. She was very unflexible, couldn't stretch, and why not? And so they asked her a few questions and about her day, and why couldn't you just fit in 10 minutes of stretching? And in a fixed mindset, she was sleeping 12 hours a night and not choosing to be flexible in that thinking, and actually very poverty in her thinking of her time. Being that poverty is not just about money. Poverty is about all your resources that you have, being your time, your energy, your money, your skills that you have, your personality that you have, your networks of people you know, and your product or service that you create within yourself. When you're an employee, your product or service that you're creating, that the business creates, that's one, but your product and service is actually within you as well. And an employer goes looking for that. So being in a poverty mindset and being fixed about how you do you and only doing you one way, and not being the malleableness that a child naturally has to learn and create and grow, then an employer isn't looking for that. They want someone that they can invest in and be malleable, so that they can trust in you of the product or service that you're creating for the customer is right, and the customer's going to get that experience, and the business can grow from that.
Yeah.
So a wealthy thinking is to provide that service and experience and that product the best of your ability every time, because just at an employee level, you can do that in one area, and then you can create another really good product or service, being yourself outside in your social aspect, your growth aspect with how you want to learn more if you want a different skill than the one that you've done, and mainly to be able to translate the skill that you have, which is really it, the skill that you have here, and put it into other areas of life. Creates a really usefulness of your resources that you have as your one.
Yes. Thank you. that was quite a trip you're taking us on then, Alex.
No, I went on my own trip too.
Shan, you still there?
Yeah, still in trance.
Well, those are two fun explorations that we've had. So just beginning to wind up for today. So we covered our versions, and hopefully with 4 people's perspectives around poverty thinking, wealth thinking, and fresh mindsets. We went all over the show, and this is cool because this is conversation, and this is life. And so, because we've been present in this conversation, what have we individually gained for ourselves, or what is our own summary of what we have heard from our perspective in this conversation today? Another way of saying it is, what's been useful?
I really liked the normalization that was brought forward, conditioning to normalization, and what you choose to be your normal. I'm a firm believer, and I really enjoy being outside my comfort.
Is he in trance?
I don't know. I'm sure it was really good.
So this must be Frozen 2.
Hey, Frozen 2. Dude, we didn't hear all that because your screen froze and Shannon saying...
Bit. Oh, my connection's unstable.
Oh.
No, it's good now. So the normalization, so conditioning and normalization, and through conditioning we find a normalization, and what you choose your conditioning to be for your normal. I really like being outside my comfort zone and consistently learning and growing in my development. And that's what I choose to be my normal, because it's always so different. Whether it's in my dancing, my mountain biking, my motocross, my building, my mechanical, my life, socialization, interactions with whoever it is, to just, that's my normal, is it everything. And then I really liked, you are born wealthy with every resource that you have, and to continue and grow in that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Alex. Oh, what I got for myself out of this discussion, great discussion. Went everywhere, enjoyed it, loved it. I got, my definition of a mindset, and that is from my experience. So what my definition of a mindset is, from my experience of the world, it creates rules within my brains to make decisions, and then that's based on our conversations that we've had today. So I've created myself my own sort of definition of what that means from this discussion. So yeah, and I want to thank you all for helping me create that today. Thank you all.
Thank you.
So, it's been interesting. It's been great. Through listening to Shanen and listening to Alex and Karyn and my own brain, because my thoughts have been cranking away.
Should be able to hear that one.
The internal voices don't stop. Mouse on a wheel. Just the navigation that everyone has through their own rules. I agree with Shanen. All that information comes in, and you do form your own new boundaries and new rules. And how we navigate that. And then when Karyn was talking about the meta self and then moving out again, I'm pretty sure that within the navigation everyone has, they bounce out to that point and back again, especially when it involves people they love and what the effects it might have on them. And then I just felt like a yo-yo. And I was like, okay, how do I find a peaceful mind in that moment? How do I find a peaceful mind in them? And then it's just back to navigation then. Okay, we have to make some decisions. So there was a bit of a process I followed, from heartfelt stuff from Shanen with his kids to heartfelt stuff actually with the shed, heartfelt stuff with the passion of the work you do, which is so much about describing what you've learned and put into practice. So that's me. Thank you.
Cool.
Awesome.
Mine's a summary of, and it doesn't have a lot of words, just the richness of all the threads. It's kind of like we weave a blanket as we talk. We're weaving this, and I'm a richer person from hearing your perspectives around the same topic that may bounce around, but of course that's part of the richness. Yeah, the richness of perspective shared. And I feel a richer person. Thank you.
I feel a wealthier person.
Oh, there you go, wealthier person. Enriched, wealthy. Yeah. But thank you, guys. Thank you very much for showing up. Your time is of value, your attention and your presence. My goodness me, your presence here is just so appreciated. Thank you. Should we do this again on moving forward into some fun conversations?
Yeah, great
100%.
mind expanding conversations.
Okay.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Thank you.